So I think when I think of high art, I suppose the one thing that I really think about is something like a painting, and I think of that as kind of the highest form of art because it takes a lot of education to be able to produce that painting. And there's an assumption that if you don't understand what that painting is or what it's telling you, that maybe you're not educated. It's not a fault of the art; it's a fault of the viewer. So there can be some kind of pretension and some idea that you're in the club if you really understand what that painting is trying to say, which, to be honest, most of the time I don't understand what those paintings are trying to say. The lowest form of art that I could think of in those terms would probably be memes. We see them 1,000 times a day. I think they're hilarious, and or can be, and they don't take a lot of education to produce. There's not an assumption that you need an education to understand them. There's really no barriers to appreciating them, and they're by nature they're very short. There's not a lot of verbiage with them, so they're certainly not considered high literature. I do think that teenagers still have a huge potential to influence pop culture. In fact, I would say that maybe even more so now than ever. Because if you look at technology and the way that marketers who in some way decide what products, what songs, bands, etc. are going to be promoted, they can follow teenagers electronically. They can tell what they like, what they don't like, what they're talking about on social media platforms, etc. So that technology has become really important. And given teenagers a bigger, an even bigger voice, a more direct voice in what's produced. They tend to be more forward thinking in digital spaces, so they're as soon as a new outlet for digital conversation shows up, they tend to be the ones. Teenagers tend to be the ones that follow it. Society can look to teenagers a lot of times to see kind of what's new, what's cool. They certainly aren't looking to to 40-year-olds to make those decisions. We're typically seen as, and maybe rightfully so, as out of touch. An example could be the use of Snapchat or maybe Instagram, but definitely Snapchat over Facebook. When deciding kind of which generation is going to use which social media platform. I still think that the most influential group in society is going to be kind of mid to upper financial status, upper class millennials. And I think this because they do have some financial backing. I think in general, 40s, 50-year-olds tend to have the highest incomes definitely in the U.S. But millennials are right there behind them, and their influence is growing. And again, the people who are deciding which products, which songs, which whatever should be marketed and produced, a lot of times they're looking to millennials now because of that financial power. But also they simply go out more. They go to clubs. They go to see live music more. I think in general than kind of the next generation that's older than them. So they have a lot of opportunity to see what's coming out, and they're digitally savvy. So they're going to be able to spread the message quickly. As far as who should be, I really think it's in the right hands. I think millennials, although maybe it should be spread more evenly across a broader plane as far as financial power goes, because I think that there's definitely some benefits to having different socioeconomic groups involved. But in general, I think millennials are a great option to move things forward, because they don't have as much to be. They're not as nostalgic about things that happened 10 or 20 years ago. They're really looking at what's coming out now. So that's pushing pop culture forward. But also they can be very influential in the platforms that pop culture is shows up in social media, etc., because they have the access. But I do wish that that access could be greater across a broader economic spread. So the right age is influential, but I think that it could be a broader scope of culture and economics.